What's up guys? Matt, Legacy 4x4. This time we're going to put a flatbed on the back of my 1997 Dodge Ram 2500 12-valve Cummins diesel. Okay, here's our starting point. We have the bed removed. Everything's nice and dusty under there. The first thing we're gonna do is start to clean everything up, get all this dust off, and start to plan out how we want this flatbed to look with the existing mounts and frame rails. Okay, so the first step in this project is to, remove the old stock bed. My stock bed was in good shape. It wasn't destroyed or beat up or anything, but I just want to have a flatbed for ease of use, and after all, this is a work truck, so the flatbed's the method we're gonna go with for adding a little bit of utility and style to the back of this truck. As you can see, we have the old bed removed. Only thing we have left are the frame rails, the mounting points, and the wiring for the rear lights, so it'll be nice and easy, and we should be able to get this one knocked out, hopefully within the weekend. For materials, as you can see, I've got a nice sheet of 11 gauge steel. I will probably end up having to go get another sheet of 11 gauge steel, but at the end of the day, this is what we're gonna use for most of the sheet work is 11 gauge. To match that sheet steel, we also have about 100 feet of 2x2 11 gauge and about 60 feet of 2x4 11 gauge. That should be plenty to get us started and get all the main structure done on this flatbed before we have to go buy more steel possibly for finishing up the sheet metal work. So one of the first things I did was remove all the old wiring too, and I just have 4 wires coming out of each side of the frame rail. The 4 wires that I have coming out, you probably won't be able to see it, but there's a purple for the brake light, a black and yellow for illumination power for the running lights as well as license plate lights, anything else. And then we have a turn signal light on mine. This is a pink and brown on the passenger side, and then a ground. I've got that on both sides. That's all we're gonna need to use to install our new lights, which we will see when we get there. I don't really think there's much more to say about this right now, so let's just go ahead and get to it. First thing we're gonna make is a nice little rectangle for the base of the main frame of this flatbed. Okay, as you can see, we have a nice basic substructure down for this flatbed build. All it is a bunch of that 2x2 just cut into a rectangle with 2 middle support beams that match the body lines of the frame. When I say match the body lines of the frame, I'm talking about that cross member right there. There'll be a bar right in the middle of that, as well as right after the fuel cell right above where that exhaust dump is. So that's where I put them. If I need to add more structure to it, once the sheet's on top, I can go ahead and add more, but for now, I'm just gonna have those 2 middle sections right in the middle of that rectangle for the subframe, and we'll see if that's good enough. All right, here I am just limit testing this nice piece of 11 gauge steel, making sure there's no bounce or flex or anything ridiculous while it sits on top of the subframe. Other than that, we're good to go with this. Let's go ahead and finish welding up this subframe. Alright, so here's how the subframe basic structure looks. It is a very simple rectangle with those 2 supports in the middle that go right in between where the frame has enough clearance for them to fit. I am going to have 6 mounting bolts. What you're seeing me do now is mark where the bolts are going to go. I'm going to tap right into this 2x4 substructure and then throw a bolt through it with the proper size bolt going into that. Alright, here's the not right way that I'm tapping these in. I've got the tap on a pair of vice grips. All I'm going to do is put some pressure on it. Once there's pressure on it, start spinning it. Make sure it gets all the way threaded, keep a bolt in it, and that's how I'm going to do it. Not the right way, but it is a valid way to do it if you don't care about how long your tap's going to last. This right here is expert precision. I think I should operate a machine shop with how good I am at tapping these threads. Just like that, we're good to go. I'm I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of these tapped in, and then we're gonna put it on the bed, tighten it down to the bed, and then we can take some more measurements. Okay, so we got everything bolted on. The next thing I want to do to get this flatbed going in the right direction is build the rear section. And that rear section is going to float off the rear and kind of go up and kiss the trailer hitch. It's not going to be connected to the trailer hitch. With that being said, I'm going to show you how I'm going to build the rear section and show you how I'm going to find and cut these angles. So this nice piece of 45-degree cut 2x2 is what I'm going to use to make the gusset that goes out to the back of the truck. That's how I want it to look on both sides. It's going to be welded directly to the other subframe, and it's going to be at about a 45-degree angle. But as you can see, there needs to be a kind of unique notch to connect both sides together, since the other side's going to be like this, about 4 feet away. And so how I found that angle was really simple. All I did was take this 45-degree cut, place it back on the rest of the subframe. After you square off this end to the subframe, you also square off the top edge of the subframe. That's going to give you your total distance. And then all you do is draw a straight line with the back of the subframe. That's going to make this bar and that cut parallel. Once you have a line matching this back subframe piece and those two lines are equal, all you're going to do is draw a little rectangle in a 2x2 square, because you're going to use 2x2. That's what you're notching. You're using 2x2. So you take that corner point, add 2 inches to the corner, and that's how you get your notch. And then you repeat for the other side. As you can see, the other side's already marked on mine. So with that being said, I'm going to go make 2 of these, and then I'll come back, tack those onto the frame, and then we can measure where they need to be and how long this middle piece needs to be for the back gusset. I think I'm just going to weld this 2x4 onto the bottom of it. Now, put a nice big full weld seam in there so it looks nice and finished and pretty. The next step is going to be the lights. I actually changed my mind. I'm going to be using these lights. I run these same lights on my 1939 rat rod. They're really easy, they're really simple. It's only 4 wires, plug and play, and they're really nice. So that's what I'm going to run with. These are just the cheapo Amazon specials. I'm going to put 1 on each side since there's not much room. I did buy 4, but it looks like we're only going to end up using 2. No big deal, still going to look fine. It's actually going to make it look really streamlined and simple. So I'm going to go ahead and drill these out, throw these lights in, show you guys the wiring, and then we can move on to the rest of the flatbed. Alright guys, and just like that, we got the lights and the license plate on and that bottom piece of 2x4 cut and welded in place. I did an ultra simple, very temporary wiring harness for this just for right now. I think I'm going to replace the lights eventually with something a little bigger. So all I did to wire these was put cones on the wires to attach them all together. The twist cones are super easy. They allow me to take it off without having to resolder and recut things. So that's why I use those for now. And then a little bit of zip ties for, some wire maintenance. But yeah, that's how it looks. I think the next thing I want to do, besides building those side supports to this flatbed, is going to be adding a flat piece of sheet metal to the very back of it so I can kind of get the back completely done for the time being. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, got the top plate cut out. We're going to go ahead and press and weld that on. Also, we have 2 little wing pieces cut out to add to the wings right behind the rear bumper area. Those wing pieces are going to cover that gap right there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and burn these in. I will talk to you guys afterwards. Okay, so that top piece is welded in. It is not perfect, and once there's a coat of paint on there, you won't be able to see it anyways. So these welds are going to stay. I'm happy with those. I did not put anything on the back side. I did not weld that at all because I don't know how I want to mount the other sheet that's going to attach for the flat part of the bed going for the rest of the cab. So that's just left blank for now. I will get to that when I get there. Next thing I'm going to do is weld on those wings. Alright guys, we have 6 equal pieces of steel. All these are a 15-degree cut on both ends. What I'm going to do with these is make the wings to the flatbed. So the edges of this flatbed is going to be angled up about 15 degrees. That's what I cut it to, that's what I'm going to do. My decision for making them angled is only to provide me enough clearance for my tires. Eventually I might go to 35s. With that being said, I might need a little more clearance besides just a normal flatbed just resting on the frame rail. Also, it's not like I'm hauling bales of hay where I need all the flat area I possibly can out of this truck. I'm still going to have about a 4 by 8 foot section that is perfectly flat. and then about a 16-inch wing section that's at that 15-degree angle. So it's still gonna be plenty capable. I just think this is the best way to design it. So that's my decision for doing it. I'm gonna go ahead and weld these on. Once these are on, I'm gonna go do the rest of this subframe structure. Here's a nice little close-up of some of the joints. As you can see, if I can get over there too, they are not necessarily super straight, but they are dimes, if that counts for anything. I may be a little dyslexic when I'm welding at an angle, but oh well. Okay, so here's a much better view of what we're working with. Here are the 15-degree wings that I was talking about. They're just welded to the side at 15 degrees. Everything's a butt joint. Everything's welded besides the bottom. I'm gonna take this whole bed off when I'm done and weld the bottom. That way it's a nice, solid, pretty weld, because I don't trust myself upside down welding against gravity. It's not one of my fortes. So I'm just gonna wait to the end to do that. But that is the wing. As you can see, the tire fits right in between those two supports right there. And those two supports are wide enough to fit a 40-inch tire if that's ever the route I choose to go down. I doubt it, but you know, you might as well overbuild it while we're here. Next thing I'm gonna do is add the connector from those wings to the tail of the flatbed. It's gonna be a nice little angle going from right here to right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure that out, cut that out, and try and get everything nice and notched so I can have nice clean welds from this junction right here. Okay, so after a lot of hand notching, that's the fitment I'm going with. That's close enough for me to weld, and then grind, and then weld, and then make pretty, you know, hit it with a hammer a few times. So that's what I'm gonna rock with. That's how the fitment looks. All that was just hand notching with the grinder, so I was satisfied with it. Okay, so there you can see the connector from the wings to the back of the tail section. Now we have a more solid shape to this flatbed. There's a close-up of some of the welds. As you can see, it welded and filled in perfectly. No worries about that juncture. And you can see where I kind of bashed the tip with the hammer, make it a little more flush, but yeah, we're gonna call that one good enough. So if you can't tell, the next thing we're gonna do is start to build this headache rack. All I'm gonna do is use some 2x4, cut into sections, make sure everything measures and lines up right, and then just tack everything together. Once it's tacked together, I'll probably take it off the truck and then weld it onto the rest of this frame. Okay, after more notching than I care to admit, I'm pretty happy with how that headache rack shape turned out. I'm gonna get you up close, show you a little bit of the gaps with that upper notch, because it was a little bit of a complicated notch, and what we're gonna work with. But the next step forward is gonna be ripping down this headache rack and then fully welding it off, and then reinstalling it and then fully welding it to the rest of the support. Okay, so that's the fitment. That is a very difficult notch to get perfect without any machine help, so that's the best as I'm gonna get it, and I'll be able to fully weld and cover that seam. I'm not too worried about it. But that's the fitment on that upper section. It's about the same on the other side, so I'm just not gonna show it. Another quick note, there will be a middle bar going through that as well. I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in as soon as I get it off the truck and it's on the ground, so I can get a nice full weld around that. So without further ado, let's get this thing fully welded and reinstalled. All right guys, so we got everything welded in place for now. We got new MIG gas and we're ready to start rocking and rolling again. We're gonna finish up the headache rack first, adding 2 vertical support pieces at the lower end of the cab, as well as 4 little gusset / backdrop pieces to add some style, as well as protection to the corners of the headache rack. Alright guys, so my camera shut off and I didn't catch any videos of me welding in the gussets to the corners, but as you can see in the close-up videos, they're just little triangles in each corner of the headache rack. Alright guys, those are how those welds turned out. Like I said, this is 1/8 inch plate going onto 1/8 inch steel, so it's not the hardest thing in the world to weld. I did mess up a few spots where I had to pick the welder up and restart the bead, and it just didn't turn out super pretty, but once this is Linexed and covered, or bed lined and spray painted, or whatever top coat I'm going to do on this, you won't really be able to tell, and it'll just look like some nice clean weld beads. So that's what I'm going to go with. Grinder and paint make you the welder you ain't, so once paint's on that, I'll be feeling a lot better about some of those little minor hiccups, but I am really happy with how it turned out, and I'm definitely going to leave those weld seams. So here are the panels that's left. We're going to have one big panel to make up the flat portion of the truck. That's almost a 4x8 sheet, so we'll have that cut at the steel supplier probably when I have to go back. We have this wing piece right here, one side panel, two side panels, and then I think I'm gonna do expanded steel for that cab section. So yeah, there's not much more to it besides getting to work cutting out these sheets and cutting out the panels. So yeah, not a lot of entertaining factors going into cutting out these sheets. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these cut out as much as I can, and I'll check back in with some more progress. Man, oh man, has this been a lot of really long welding seams and a lot of welding work done to this flatbed. So far, we are almost done. We're at the very finishing steps. As you can see, I fully welded the wings. I know, stitching probably could have got the same effect, but I just wanted to fully weld them. I like having those nice long weld seams on the side. They'll look really nice with the paint on it, and they're absolutely permanent. There's no chance those go anywhere. Like I said, the headache rack is already fully welded as well on the top as well as middle and bottom portions of it. Okay guys, for this bottom section, I'm just gonna thread and bolt into the side of the frames right along the weld seam. I'll probably do 6 bolts. 3 on each side near those wings. The reason I'm doing that instead of welding it in is so I can have access to all the internals on the back frame of the truck, including the gas tank, rear axle, shocks, everything. I'll just make life easy if I ever need to use it. So with that being said, I think I'm going to start throwing a few coats of paint on this. I'm not going to do anything special for right now. I'm just going to throw a coat of rust prevention Rust-Oleum and then some nice silver to match the side of the truck. And then when I get the top and the cab finished, I'll probably bed line the upper portions myself. And that's the plan. So I will catch back in tomorrow once I got those pieces of steel cut and I'm about to weld them in. Alright guys, we got the steel transported back home with a nice and sketchy double wood clamp transportation method, but it's back home. So all we gotta do now is notch the steel, bolt this into place, and then bed line the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock that out, and let's go look at the finished product. That's it for the flatbed. There's the finished product. As you saw from the little compilation of all those short little videos, this is how it looks. If you have any design questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll answer them as best I can for why I did what I did. Here's how it turned out. I think the only thing you guys haven't seen is that I added some shackles to the sides, some tow hooks to the front, and I'm not gonna put any backdrop towards the back of the cab quite yet. I'm gonna put a big job box back there eventually, so until I get that box, I don't really wanna throw any mesh expanded steel back there for right now. Eventually it'll come, but for now, we're gonna call this the finished product. So yeah, until next time guys, we're gonna go put this thing in action, probably tow my red Dodge over to Morris Mountain again, maybe River Rock. We're gonna go have some fun with it. So next time you see this, hopefully it's towing something and we actually get to see some action out of the flatbed.